Hey guys, Mitch and Toddy here with another episode of the U-Spray podcast. Welcome back, Mr. Toddy. Good to see you as always. Listeners, hope you're all well also. And I just want to give a shout out to our listeners. We get a lot of feedback from you guys messaging us on Instagram or even mentioning on the shop or the phone that you're listening to our podcast. It really means a lot to us that you taking time out of your day to listen to what we have to say. I mean, sometimes it might be bullshit, but most of the time, we're talking about things that we love and our interest, and obviously a common interest is painting and spray. So thank you for all the support. Our numbers are growing a lot and downloads are increasing after every episode. So that's really cool. And so thank you. So today, what we want to talk about is we're always trying to give you as much knowledge as we physically can without seeing you in person. But we've had a few things that we get asked by people a lot, or we get questions on our Instagram or Facebook posts about certain things. So we just wanted to talk about them and if one person's thinking it, maybe a lot of you are. Now, had a guy actually reach out the other day to him. He heard that we were talking about low pressure tips. And he said, I'd never actually heard about low pressure tips. And he was like, I like to spray at high pressure. And I said, why is that? And he said, because I want to move faster. I said, what tip do you use? And he's like, 517. I said, okay. I said, why don't you change your tip and get a bigger tip? And he goes, I don't want a bigger fan. And I was like, no, well, you don't have to. You can keep the same fan size, but get that, change that second number, go to a 519 or a 521. And you should be spraying, not much, around 2000 PSI, basically. And he said, yeah, right, but that doesn't make sense. I said, well, if you're upping that size on your tip, that second number, there's more paint coming out. The flow is higher, and you won't need to put the pressure up so much, and be getting lots of wastage and stuff from overspray. It's like, oh wow, okay, I'll give it a whirl. He goes, oh, everyone that I know uses blue Graco tips or yellow Wagner tips. I said, no, mate, you need to try that. Like they cover mint and less overspray and all that good stuff. Now he asked me, he said, how do low pressure tips differentiate from normal tips in their makeup, and how do they actually work? And that's a question I wanted to ask you about, because you are the spray wizard, the technical genius. You are Todd Musk in our business.
The toad.
Yes, the toad. But mate, give us a breakdown of like how they work.
So, in basic terms, the way they design the core, pre-atomizer, that stuff doesn't really matter, but it allows you to spray at half the pressure and achieve a similar result. So, the benefit of lower pressure, obviously, just like if you have a thumb in front of a garden hose, as you loosen it, the droplets get bigger, and the less the wind can blow it around. Same thing applies. So when you reduce the pressure, your droplets get noticeably bigger, substantially bigger actually, so that the atmosphere alone can't throw it around as much. And so all the stuff that would have been overspray is now reaching the surface, which has a lot of benefits. So better coverage, stays wet longer, so you reduce the risk of flashing if you're doing glossy work or external work. And you'll save a fair bit of paint as well. Less masking has to be done. Yeah, so one of the things that we get queried a lot is, I've used it and it's just they're too slow. They're too slow, I don't like them. And straight away that just tells me that they've probably taught themselves and they're used to just cranking it up to 11. 3,000 PSI. So the reality is if you're at the right distance away, 12 inches, 30 centimeters, the low pressure tips should give you the same flow rate and coverage as the high pressure tips at the right distance away, 30 centimeters away, at half the pressure. So you can get you should get the same experience if you're the right distance away. So if you're feeling that they're too slow, good chance you're too far away. So a lot of guys spraying ceilings, they don't realize that increasing the pressure doesn't actually increase the amount of paint that comes out. Um, kind of thinks that kind of makes sense. All it does is create more overspray and less coverage. So all they really have to do is get closer to the surface. So as you're saying before, Omid was saying, I prefer the size of the fan. What that might do though is it might actually reduce the size of the fan that they're used to. So it takes some getting used to. But if it turns out that it's too slow, bigger fan to get more paint, or bigger orifice to get more paint to come out. If it's too fast, small orifice to let less paint come out. And if the fan is too small after that, then it's a conversation around tip size. So it's whether you go, if you're used to using a 517 to go to a 617 or a 717 or 817, 1217, if that exists, to allow you to have a big fan again. But so the hardest thing they find is getting used to spraying from that distance away. Yeah, the paint savings, the add-ons later on goes way down once you get that right, because you don't have flashing, so you don't have to do extra coats as much. Way less overspray, so way less masking required. So you guys have obviously done a good job of spraying repaints. Not a lot of guys spray repaints because of the overspray, but when you realize that with the right setup, right pressure, right distance, all these sort of things, you can actually spray a feature wall with minimal masking. Still gotta put a drop sheet down and mask the edges, but yeah, realistically, you can introduce spray to areas of a repaint business that you wouldn't traditionally use just by getting that right. And make more money, save more paint, all these things. Which is
and just about the chambers and the tip makeups. What's the difference between the standard tips to the low pressure tips?
Yeah, so if you have a look through the back of I'm looking at a wrap tip or a trade tip 3 or something, you'll see that it's just basically just a chamber straight to the tip. But if you go to the low pressure tips and the fine finish tips as well, they have like pre-atomizing cores that help break it down all the way through, help atomize it early to allow it to atomize at lower pressure, which makes a big difference. Not only that, but your tip machine lasts longer because it's not working as hard. Your handpiece lasts longer because it's not working as hard. Less servicing required. So the benefits of it far outweigh, the negatives. And the only negative is if you're not close enough and feel like you're going too slow, really.
And just on that, like some of the cordless machines, guys struggle with certain tips. Why is that?
So most of them, if you're referring to the quick shot or, those sort of machines, they max out at a pressure of like, say 2000 max. And so a lot of these guys try to use, normal high pressure tips and they won't atomize because the pressure can't get up high enough. So you actually have to use low pressure tips and fine finish tips to allow it to atomize. And so it's not very common people do that because it comes with a tip that you're supposed to use. But yeah, if you're having issues, that's probably the issue.
Now, the other day when I did a video about extensions and getting spits, and obviously about releasing the trigger, quickly, so it doesn't get stuck through that, and holding down quickly, being very assertive when you're doing it, and then the use of the anti-spit valve. There's a fair few guys that commented on it that's saying, if your gun's cleaned out properly and you use the right filter, your extension shouldn't get any spits. There's a few people that said that. Now, what do you say to that?
What do I say to that? I would say there are definitely things that can be done that would make it more prominent and more common. If you have the wrong size tip, for example, we actually had this scenario in training last week where one of the guys asked me, why am I getting spitting all the time? I was like, I'll show you when I do it. We do the spray side. And so I got to the spray side. And one of the things we do in training is when we highlight the different types of tips and what they do and how they work, we use roof membrane, which is really thick, but spray is really nice. So we do it because it's, spray is really nice. It's good to show guys, how power machines can handle it. Plus it really highlights the bad things because it's so thick. So what we're doing is we're showing at the time we're spraying with fine finish tip. And that's when he asked me, oh, show me that spitting thing. And I went to go show him. Spits. And one of the things I've forgotten about, because it doesn't happen that often, is sometimes having a tip that's too small can actually promote spitting. So that was exactly what was happening. So in this case, I was using like a 311 or something. Spit, spit, spit. And then it dawned on me, because we're using roof membrane. Pulled it out, put in a 517 tip. That was the other thing we're showing off. Gone. Gone. So it's like there's things that do that. But the main reason why you're getting spittings with an extension pole is because where the action happens is at the gun. So you got the gun here, trigger opens, trigger shuts. And then this long extension pole, which is basically nothing. There's a hole at the end. So when you let go of the trigger, the momentum is still going. And so you don't notice it a lot in the ceiling because gravity's helping keep it down. So it's not as common as sitting. But if you're spraying a roof, or floor roof, spraying the roof, top of a roof, or a wall or something like that, the longer the extension pole goes as well, you'll experience that a lot. So guys use a 6-foot extension pole without an anti-spit valve, you'll definitely see it. And it doesn't matter what tip you use because that's just the way it is. And so it's definitely new tips. It's less likely if it's the right tip because it's not that big of a hole, and sometimes it just doesn't spit. But as the tip wears, as paint changes, thinner paint tends to spit a bit more. So I guess technically, if your system's set up, it can be managed, so it's not so bad. But you always get spitting, and if you're not getting spitting, then you'll get a little bit of ooze coming out, and then over time, triggering on and triggering off all the time, we'll start collecting that and spitting that instead.
Yep.
So you can work without it. And when you go to the US, you see guys, they never turn off their gun. They just keep spraying and going, which is great. No spitting there.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if that's because they don't want to buy an anti-spit valve, so it saves money. Fine, it makes sense. But yeah, I'd say definitely can contribute to that. But the reality is it stops at the gun, not at the extension pole. And so spitting is always going to be
yeah, that's my thoughts too. It's interesting that you see some guys that put anti-spit valve straight to their handpiece.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it definitely works. And I think a lot of it, going back to what I was saying before about the handpiece, if you pull the trigger too slowly, there's a point where it's on and off. It's not on, it's not off, and you get a spit. And then we'll let go of it, same thing. You get a spit. And so it doesn't matter how far away the extension is. And so the benefit of an anti-spit valve is that will not open until it achieves a certain pressure. And so regardless of how slow it doesn't actually open until it's open enough to where it's going, which avoids that. And same thing with releasing it. So if I release it slowly, this is still going to shut off immediately once it hits a point. So if you're using, any of the newer sort of handpieces that have that really light triggers and you're experiencing spitting, anti-spit valve will definitely help with that. If you can't remember to commit on and commit it off to prevent it. But yeah, I've seen that a lot. Makes sense.
Okay. Something else I wanted to talk about is, and this is it's a pretty common one. I don't actually think that we have spoken about it, but yeah, shout out to Inspirations at Durable, who is one of our distributors in Sydney, but they actually sold one of our SGC 10s. Yep. Now, they had a problem on site to begin with. They rang us, and as we do for our customers, you jumped on the FaceTime call with the foreman there just to help him out with his problem with the machine. What was the problem? Was it a common problem? How can it be avoided?
The issue he was having is he would spray a room. He was doing like a hotel or something, some big thing. So he was spraying this room out, finish the room, and then he'd go to the next room, and they would lose pressure. Couldn't keep pressure up. And so, which was kind of weird. Okay, so while I was watching him, so we got it all set up, got it working as we'd expect. Like, I go spray this room. And so this particular room was not much bigger than this room. It was actually quite small. Finish the room. And then it goes on the next room, sprays that one up. Piece of cake. And then gets about, then went to the third room. These are all really small, like office like this. Spraying. And then it starts losing pressure. And he goes, oh, it's happening again. It's happening again. I was like, did you run out of paint? He's like, no. So then he starts walking back to the machine. Sure enough, ran out of paint. And so that was first a problem. And this would have happened previously for him as well. So what happens is they go get a drum of paint, top it up, or some people will pull it out, put it in the drum of paint. It'll start to build pressure, and then they'll lose all the pressure. And what happens is while it was running, trying to drop paint, it gobbled up some air. And so what happens is once they put it in paint, the machine finds it, starts drawing it up, and then it'll build pressure, and then what will happen is it'll hit a wall because the tip's not activated, and the air pocket will act like a cushion, and it'll bounce back, and the back pressure will go and hold the top ball down, and then won't allow it to open. There's probably a few hundred psi in there, so even if you smack it with a hammer, you have to smack it pretty hard to get it to go loose. It probably won't go loose, and so now you have no pressure, and so he was like, I have to put it in prime, and then it works. That's exactly right. It's exactly what you have to do because the air pocket's in there. And so to avoid that in future, one, you shouldn't really let your machine run out of paint. But if it does run out of paint, when you top it up and when you change it, it's important to put it in the prime for a little bit to let the air pocket go through. Just like what we talked about, if you try to drink water too fast, you get the air pocket in your throat. It's exactly what happens. And so that will let the air pocket pass. And now there won't be a delay. There won't be a cushion delay in there, forcing that back pressure to go up. So that's all it was. And so it's just a matter of, okay, and it's not like it's a SGC thing. It's all piston pumps will do that. That's just the way it works.
Yeah.
And so in this particular scenario, it was cold that day. Paint was thicker. It's more common with thicker paint. It's just ring primer, I think. And probably had a lot of line in it as well, being a commercial job. Yeah, that's all it is. And what's surprising me how many people don't actually realize that. It's funny because what happens is typically guys get really pissed off and they take it, throw the machine in the truck, and they drive to the service center. When you pull it out, set it up, it's working fine. They're like, oh, it wasn't working. But what's happened is that ball was stuck. They threw it in the truck, possibly tilted on its back, allowed it to open, and that fixes itself. And the crazy thing about that, it's a 2-second fix. And most of the time when the machine comes in for a service, that's all it is. And it's like, what the cost to someone's business that is insane. Absolutely insane. And one of the reasons why we started doing training in the first place, even back in my Dulux days, because it was like, I got sick and tired. I don't mind charging people for my time, but it's like the cost to their business would be way, way, way more than that. And more than likely, depending on where you go, it's 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks before anyone looks at it. And so sometimes you're forced to buy a new machine or hire a machine. And realistically, it's 2 seconds worth of work. And I would hate to think that anyone out there would ring you and say, oh, bro, your packings are gone, and charge you to rebuild it, because you wouldn't know.
Yeah.
But I would say almost all the machines we get, that's what it is.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was cool. It was cool to do because, like, they've been spraying for yonks, and they never knew that. It was just like 10 minutes time. Bro, now they'll never have a problem with that again. And the benefit of that as well, if you ever take it into a service center and they pull it out and your packings have been melted, it's pretty common and pretty easy to see. It's almost always because of that. Because the machine's now stuck shut. And so the machine's just smashing itself, trying to build pressure, but the valve's shut, so it can't. And then it just heats up and melts your packing. So if you let it running like that, just knowing that allows you to fix it. And that will never be an issue, and you'll get the fullest life out of your packings. But a lot of times what we find is, if the packings have gone, it's usually prematurely. That's usually exactly for that reason. Service centers are going to hate me for telling you that, but that's all it is. And I would say the amount of money our industry would save, and honestly, I reckon it deters people from spraying. They've had that experience before. It sucks. Anyway, 5 weeks. My builder hates me now. Everyone hates me, blah, blah, blah. So I just don't even bother. I won't even touch a sprayer because of that. And it's like, bro, it's not that hard. That's all it is. I wish that didn't happen to you, but it's like, it'll never happen again because you know how to do it. So.
And
so I get really psyched up by this stuff.
Yeah.
So good.
No, it's awesome. The other thing guys ask frequently, I saw it on a couple of posts just before actually. How often should you oil the pump? The piston? Yep. And why should you oil it?
Good question, actually. So normally I would say start of the day. because most guys don't spray that much, probably 2 or 3 hours a day.
Just a couple of drops.
A couple drops. Sorry.
Yeah.
But I did come across someone the other day that was spraying basically 8 hours a day, just nonstop.
Yeah.
In that case, it's like, bro, when you go to smoke out lunch in America, hit it again before you start.
Yeah.
Now, the purpose of that, one, it does lubricate it. But the other thing, too, is a lot of these guys are working in an enclosed area where there's heaps of overspray. You know, me personally, leave it outside. I'll leave it in another room.
Yeah.
But most, I get it. It's just the way it is. And so what happens is overspray makes its way in there. And over time, if you don't oil it, it will settle on the piston and it'll dry hard. And then it'll just rub against your packings and wear your packings out. So the idea, one, for that, but two is if you're oiling it, when it needs to be rebuilt, you take it into a service center. I'm not spending hours having to clean that out with dried paint. It helps keep it wet so that when it is time for a service, from our point of view, you just wipe it out and it cleans really easy. Like, it's designed to actually break down the paint. And so that's the main reason why you do it. Lubrication, definitely. But yeah, it's going to, one, extend the life of your packings because it's not going to settle there. And two, it's going to make our job easier when you bring it in. So we're not, having to chisel it up when it leaks from the top packing and makes a bit of a mess.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. Yeah, I mean, it's an important thing, just a bit of care and maintenance. Like, I mean, we're even looking at a machine today, the top of the pump, where there was dry paint present, whether that's been overspray at the top of the pump, being pulled into it, or it is, some dried paint from, the packing starting to leak. So, yeah. But well, that's another episode in the books. Hope you guys got a bit out of that one and helps you with your day-to-day spraying. But until next time, keep spraying.